A Giants podcast for Giants fans
By Giants fans.
from the offseason through the wins and the losses. It's time to take one Giant step.
All right, welcome in One Giant Step. We have one Giant football game left. We are done with Week 17. The Giants beat the Raiders 34-10. As Jackson Dart looks like the Jackson Dart of old, and Giant fans are left for the second straight year not being able to thoroughly enjoy an ass-kicking type victory, which just sums up Giant football in a nutshell. I'm Shaun, Morash, Bryce, Gelman with me as well. Remember, download, subscribe everywhere. One Giant Step is available to you, and I mean it is everywhere. Check us out. Give us a like. Give us a follow. All that good stuff, because you never know when these pods are going to be churned out, especially in an off season that can be full of much turmoil. Bryce, I made a little pre-show video that appeared on the WFAN Instagram and Twitter, and it was my honest feeling this morning, which is I hate this as a fan. I remember, and we brought it up several times throughout the offseason podcast about that Colt game. We were going to do a rewatch that we never got around to with the idea of watching the Colt game, knowing how the draft plan figured out, and realizing, like, hey, we could have been able to enjoy that game last year because the Giants got Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart, and winning that game should have been enjoyed as a win, and we couldn't. Felt the exact same way today, man. I woke up and it was palpable. I watched ESPN Sunday Countdown, and they were doing several drop-ins on the importance of getting the number one pick and some stuff around there. And I got sucked into it. And Bryce, it was right before kickoff. I know you were texting me back and forth about fantasy stuff, and we were talking about Michael Mayer today in a game like this.
I am big time on that. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, geez. And here's what I just keep coming back to with this game, man. It's that it's the moment that the afternoon was going on, we got close to kickoff. I didn't think the Giants were losing the game. It was obvious what the Raiders were doing with the Max Crosby stuff. My only question was going to be, and why I thought they'd play well, is Dart going to allow to be allowed to be Dart? And he was, and he had an interesting quote about not wanting to be Joe Flacco and telling the organization that, and that's pretty much how the Giants played today. They also got an enormous interception from Bobby Okereke, which was just kind of laughable. And, of course, the kick return from Deontay Banks. So we'll kind of rank what those moments are kind of funny or not. But to sum it up, to say this, there's a lot of you listening to this podcast right now who probably don't even know themselves what they're going to look for out of me and Bryce's mouth. Do you want me and Bryce to scream and yell about how this is so typical of the Giants and they can't get this right? I mean, we could do that for you, but also remember, like, those players were not going to, I tried telling Bryce this in text messages, those players were not going to play to quit. They were not going to play to lose. None of them give a damn about the picks coming in, and we've seen so many instances where it doesn't turn out that way anyway. Okay, so, like, they weren't going to play that way. On the flip side, you could also understand that clinching the number one pick today, which was now on the table at 4:00 Eastern time, would have been awesome for the Giants. And then they could have lost, and the next week we could have rooted like hell to beat the Cowboys anyway, and that would have been fun and awesome. But in the end, Bryce, they win because they always win. But the good news, unlike last year, is whether any of you view it as realistic or not, I do view it as realistic. The Giants are still alive for the number one pick heading into the final week of the year. And even if they lose, they're guaranteed no worse than the second pick, which now also might be really valuable with the sudden rise of the draft Knicks of Dante Moore from Oregon. So that's where we're at. Not all hope is lost. The Giants did win a football game, but in the end, I'm sure, Bryce, we're going to see how you feel here. It just sucks because they scored 34 points, Dart played well, and it just kind of feels like an empty, hollow post-game podcast here because you can't even enjoy the actual win part of it. But what do you got for us, Bryce?
Let me address some of my texts that I sent you earlier today. And coming back to that, I'm an idiot. Whatever I said, actually, not even just whatever I said.
Go ahead. Tell the audience that you thought Jackson Dart would throw a game today.
Because I was thinking with my you-know-what and not my head. And I texted you, I'm like, maybe there's a chance that Jackson Dart knows that he's the future of the franchise.
Time out.
From the ownership, and he's going to sell the game because he knows what's best for the franchise. And it's one of the stupidest
Time out. You were thinking with your you-know-what? What, you were thinking with your penis?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, you know what I mean?
Football?
Like,
what are you talking about?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Is that like completely implausible?
So Bryce Gelman, you texted me today that, hey, I think Jackson Dart knows what's best for him in the future of the Giants, to get the number one overall pick. And you said that was you thinking with your penis?
I didn't say that.
But you said you know what? What does that mean?
I'm not gonna expand on that.
If it's a normal organ, you say the organ.
You throw whatever you want.
What? We're not playing ad libs. What did you mean?
Yeah, I was thinking with my penis. Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Because I was thinking, I could say I'm thinking with my heart, but I love the Giants and I want them to lose, and I think they're going to lose. But in terms of there's I don't know. I'm not even going to get into it. That's just we're gonna spend 10 minutes here. But back to what I was saying is that I thought the Giants would sell the game because Jackson Dart would do exactly what Mike Kafka has been expecting him to do, which is stay in the pocket, not get out, and not run the ball like he did today. And I, for whatever reason, thought that was going to be why the Giants would lose the game. We both picked the Giants to win. And up until game time, I thought they were going to win. But it was almost my way of reaching out to you and letting you know how I'm coping with the situation. I'm coping with the inevitability of the Giants winning the game. And of course, that came to fruition. But for whatever reason, I had that gut feeling of could this happen? Could things actually go right for the Giants for once? And of course, we all saw the outcome. And of course, we know exactly what happened. Things don't go right for this team. Historically, this has now happened. I think tomorrow will be a year from the win against the Colts. And Shaun, this was as flawless of a win as that Colts game, and then some. It's the most flawless win they've had since that Colts game. You can point to the Eagles game. They only forced one turnover, and they also did not force any turnovers on downs from the Eagles in that game. The Giants, they forced multiple turnovers, and the second that Geno Smith threw that interception at the end of the first quarter when they were in a great position to score the Raiders, and Bobby Okereke took it 60 yards, I had that sinking feeling again. I went back to exactly where I was objectively the entire week and up until game time. I don't know what the hell I was texting you, though. That was my way of coping. It was like hopium.
Yeah,
Maybe
it was hopium.
There's no, I even said to you, it could be complete conjecture is what I said. And turns out it was.
So here's where I'm at beyond that. You can't turn back time now. The game is done. The Giants have won. What we need to keep in mind is this week is going to be wacky with inactives. Week 18 always is with the NFL, and what teams and players, depending on incentives, depending on, hey, do I want to get an injury here and go all out before the offseason? Week 18 is wacky. And that is probably the primary reason why the Giants are now not out of the number 1 overall pick, despite the fact that they don't control their own destiny for it. But this Mahomes injury and what the Kansas City Chiefs look like on Christmas night, combined with the fact that if a guy like Kenny Pickett starts in this game, he's going to try like hell to have some good tape to have a job next year. I don't think it's Ashton Genty trying to close out the year strong. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Pete Carroll, I don't think coached to lose the game today. I just think he sucked. By the way, I should say a lot about him that he allowed Mike Kafka to coach circles on him. I think it's very plausible the Raiders, despite how bad they looked, this is still a team last week that hung in there with the Houston Texans who were trying hard. It's not entirely impossible if the good Kansas City Chief players don't want to get hurt, all that the Raiders win a game next week. That's all I'm saying.
No, I get it. I understand. It's definitely not an impossibility. There's a 20% chance that it's 80-20 now, the Giants.
But that means
less for them in terms of the Raiders. It's 80-20.
But that means that's a made-up percentage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was 85-15, and now all of a sudden it's 80-20. Makes no sense. Apparently,
that's based on purely a team winning a game. They don't know what the Chiefs are going to look like. It's stupid.
It makes no sense. The thing about the Chiefs is where I'm going to caution you here is the fact that it's I know Mahomes is out, but this is almost like their last dance. Kelsey's going to retire. This team could look completely different next year. Spagnuolo could get a head coaching job. I think it's doubtful. There's a chance that happens. The vibes from the Chiefs are gone. This is their last dance. This is their last game of the end of technically a dynasty, and the season was, but it's the last game of the season that ended the dynasty. I think that there's some importance to that. Even if it's a third string quarterback, even if both the top quarterbacks threw out their knees, I just look at this situation. The Giants had it in their hands. They controlled their own destiny. Do you really trust another team to help them get where they need to be?
It's not that, but I think that the way this season has gone and the way that the NFL goes, last year was ironically enough because Joe Milton's on the Cowboys now. Joe Milton winning that game and kind of screwing over the Pats draft status. We see this crap happen every year. And just because the Giants screwed it up this week doesn't mean it's not going to get screwed up next week. That's all I'm saying. And look, in the end, I brought up the Travis Hunter trade, pick number 2. Like if Fernando Mendoza goes one, and I brought this up over on Talking Giants as well, the idea of Dante Moore, who like all of a sudden Mel Kiper's in love with, says he could go number one. And we know we're going to hear a million of these quarterback smoke screens. He could go 17, he can go 1 or 2. I think you're still going to be in a spot where maybe it's not as lucrative as the first overall pick, but if you have the second overall pick, accumulating an extra 1 and an extra 3, something like that, like I think the Giants can still make out here, even with the number 2 pick, in a trade out spot. And if not for a quarterback, maybe for Caleb Downs or whoever the best player may be.
You think the value of the
Bane.
second overall pick changes if Mendoza lays an egg?
Nah, I think there's enough on his resume. I think that the only thing that changes is maybe,
or if he throws 3 picks against Alabama.
I don't think it changes anything. I think he's already proven enough. I do. Especially beating Ohio State in the realm he had. I think Mendoza, I think it changes for Dante Moore if he goes out there and makes a run to a national championship game. I think it changes with him. Now I'm sure you'll have naysayers immediately, but it's like clothes, man. You wash them, you go through the combine, you go through all of it. Mendoza's stock will be back to sky high come April, despite the fact if he throws 3 interceptions. But nonetheless, something to keep an eye on. All right, now with that, Bryce, the one thing I will say, you can't erase the fact that the Giants won and, lost in the meantime. We could talk about the fact of how funny it was. I guess we'll talk about this right now. How funny it was that Deonte Banks returns a kick. I mean,
you can't make it up.
We've talked about it all year, right? We've talked about it all year how he ironically was good at this. That was the death blow because it kind of felt like the Raiders might have been knocking on the door. Maybe it would have been a Giant fourth quarter collapse. And the Giants, whose special teams had been atrocious in the past few weeks, they get the kick return, the backbreaking kick return. It's Deonte Banks. So unintentionally funny. I laughed. I cried. I did all of that. But Deonte Banks did that. And we got a little kicker here. Ben Saul's on a little bit of a run here.
I was just going to say, like, every special teams play could have not gone better. After it was their Achilles heel against the Patriots, they could have beaten the Patriots.
Yeah.
If the special teams didn't blow it catastrophically. Just like this kind of shit always happens to the Giants. It's almost like you could have bet every random prop that there is, and you probably would have hit all of them.
Yeah, although I did have a bet on Giants defense first touchdown score of the day.
Yeah.
Came close in that Okereke return.
Really close. Well, what were the odds in that? Plus 1,800?
I had bet like $28.60 and it was going to pay out $12,000.
You were probably insane.
You could imagine when Okereke is running and what I was thinking in that moment. It would have been nice. Hey, Christmas is paid for. That would have been cool. That didn't happen, though. That didn't happen because I don't deserve nice things. All right, so that, yeah.
Not just you. It's not just you. All of us.
So Bryce, the other part of this game that I think is worth talking about, and I think it's actually honestly the most important part besides the fact that they lost the pick, and that is Jackson Dart, man. We could kind of check quickly through like the Abdul Carter had another great game stuff, but Jackson Dart, let's just talk about him here. If the Giants were going to win a game the rest of the year, and we talked about this when the schedule appeared to be getting lighter, it was build some confidence for Jackson Dart. I would argue that the confidence the last 2 weeks, we saw him not looking like himself, not looking like the quarterback we'd seen under Dable. This is the only reason I'm not crying and screaming and yelling that the Giants won this football game.
Yeah.
If they won this football game by Dart handing it off 80 times and we got nothing out of it from the quarterback position, I'd be far more angry right now. They won this game by Jackson Dart dialing it back and looking like the Jackson Dart we believed was awesome at the beginning of the year. Jackson Dart gave CBS the quote that he's not Joe Flacco. He doesn't want to stand back there and be a pocket passer. It says everything about what he was frustrated with the last couple of weeks, and he clearly did not like the game plan that Tim Kelly and that Mike Kafka had dialed up for him in the Minnesota and Washington games when he's throwing for 33 yards. He clearly had words with all those offensive coaches this week that this is who he needs to be. He needs to be on the move with his legs, making plays. He rewarded them, Bryce, by the way, by playing a pretty safe brand of running football as well. He was looking for the out of bounds. I got a text from Tiki in our Evan and Tiki group chat where like he could tell Jackson Dart was getting smaller with the football to avoid contact. Jackson Dart is something we had talked about also on the podcast while everybody was still focused. Even at the end of those games when he was running, since the Bear game, he was showing a new way, like ability to slide and do all those things. And it kind of got overlooked because he got walloped in that one hit with the Patriot game. He did all of that today. He rushes in 2 touchdowns. Bryce, above anything else, Dart looking like that again gave me the super confidence of, oh, yeah, this guy, I know the Raiders suck, but this guy's got drip, as the kids like to say. He's a quarterback. He's a player. He's a football player. I was happy for him that he got off the schneid and got another win in his pocket before the year ends.
he looked a lot less reckless and he looked a lot more under control.
Yes.
You felt like when he had the ball, there was something in mind. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whereas in the first few weeks and the time, of course, when he got the concussion on a fluke play against the Bears, there were a multitude of plays where it didn't seem like he had any plan. He tucked the ball under his arm and just ran. And clearly in the NFL, when you're playing against guys who are 6'4", 250, all around you, some guys are 6'7", 300, you got to be smarter. You have to have the foresight to know any one of these guys can catch up to me and pop me from the side, from the back, from the front, doesn't matter where, I could easily get hurt. And I think, I did say this almost as if like, I think we talked about this last week of, I think that they're going to allow him not really to with the design runs, but to stay in the pocket still mostly because they try to hammer it home in the offseason and not necessarily try it now. Even Tiki said, a few people have said this, it's impossible to change how a player plays in the middle of the season. And you saw Brian Dable try to hammer it home repeatedly. Jackson Dart didn't learn his lesson, got popped in the Bears game. Again, fluke injury, but still he got cussed. And it happened again against the Patriots, even though we've talked about it. It wasn't a legal hit. He was in bounds, could have gone out of bounds earlier. It seemed like that was not getting across to him. It was not hitting home. And today you kind of felt, all right, the tide is turning. Yeah. Everything is shifting now. Like, it's not just the fact that Jackson Dart played well. It's that he played under control, Shaun. You want to take positive away from this game. It's not the fact that, he ran for 2 touchdowns. Congratulations. All right. The positive is the fact that he played under control. The fact that he looked like he had an idea of what he was going to do every time he ran the ball. That's my biggest takeaway. And, I think we echo each other's sentiments. The fact like that's a positive. We could sit here and we're not going to scream to the high heavens. The fact that the Giants won the game, we can, and we probably would have. There's a positive. There you go. And
there it is.
Congratulations on 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Defied the odds. Somehow shorter than me. I didn't even know that. I thought he was like 5'10" at least.
No, it's good for Wandale. He earned that payday somewhere else next year, so I'm very proud of him.
Yeah, I heard you guys talk about this in Talking Giants. If I could just indulge you in this, in this conversation right now of like, I kind of get where Justin is coming from in the idea that especially if Joe Shane comes back, he's going to want to re-sign his own guy after they lost out on McKinney, after a lot of people were upset after they lost out on Barkley. We've talked about it a million times. Clearly that was the right move. They just gave Darius Slayton $12 million a year. It's almost as if it's the reverse of the Giants getting rid of Xavier McKinney and then throwing their money at Javon Holland. And I think that's like, it's almost the inverse of that, but it's still related. It's still a similar move.
Okay. But here's my devil's advocate. I brought up Jermaine Illuminor on that pod. I'm going to give you a name I didn't bring up on that pod. Cordell Flott. Isn't it more of a...
He's got to get paid.
Okay, but like they're not going to pay all 3 of those guys is my point. So like we could talk about, and this is where it's easy to say he's going to pay his own guys. He'll pay 2 of them. I think he's going to pay Flott and Illuminor.
Hey, Darius Slayton, $12 million a year. We'd be having a different conversation right now.
Yeah, we would be, but he did. So like, and you have to adjust. And I think it's more likely they take a receiver if they get an extra pick in this draft, or even take one in general with their top pick, if that's their plan more than Wandale. Now, real quickly, Abdul Carter, another phenomenal game, 3rd straight week for Abdul, kind of stacking these performances, Bryce. This is everything the Giants imagine when they take Abdul Carter 3rd overall. He looks like an absolute stud, an absolute player for this defense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. What else do you want me to say?
Well, it's good to see that the maturity is coming in for him. You know what I mean? Like he's put the work in.
Man, he's just like, and dude, like, we're not going to do it right now. The last 7-8 weeks, the Kayvon's been out.
Good. Now imagine having Kayvon out there and having 3 guys go to work.
Dude, or playing him at outside linebacker, playing him at inside linebacker, all the different places.
Well, that's on hiring a good defensive coordinator.
He should be on the edge every single play. Every play.
I don't know, man. Didn't seem to be a problem when Strahan, OC, and Tuck were on the team, and then after that, JPP, OC, and Tuck.
Spagnola back.
Yeah, I mean, or Perry Fuel, who also used them fine. My point is, it wasn't just one defensive coordinator. It's the Giants' defensive coordinator situation sucks. All right, now real quickly before we wrap the pod, though, kind of thoughts on the Ian Rappaport stuff that happened before the games today.
Yeah.
The graphic read Joe Shane safe through the draft. and just the idea that the Giants will consider all options, including Fernando Mendoza. Now, I'm just going to address the first one, and I could just tell. And I love these guys, right? Whether it's Dunleavy, whether it's Connor Hughes, Pat Leonard, Jordan Renan, the Giant beat reporters, who many of you, if you listen to the show, you follow. Many I consider friends. It's a beaten down season for them. It's a beaten down season for them, right? You have 2 wins going into today, a third win. They don't have kind of intel and scoops on what's going to happen with Shane right now. It's very evident we'd get more of like those stories, and this isn't their fault. It's just like the leaks have dried up in terms of the future of Joe Shane. So when Ian Rappaport throws that stuff out there today, these guys couldn't wait to jump on Twitter with thoughts. And I thought every single one of them to a man, unless I missed one that didn't do this, overreacted to the Giants will consider all options Fernando Mendoza stuff. I actually texted with Bryce in this before the report came out today, because Bryce was texting me about, well, Jackson Dart knows what's better. I go, yeah, I mean, you never know. A new GM could come in and go, I love Fernando Mendoza. I don't think that would happen, but that's why Jackson Dart wouldn't lay down for that. Like if he showed a willingness to kind of quit today, maybe another GM would look like that. That being said, Joe Shane just ran his own worst leak imaginable. Everybody saw his press conference around the NFL a couple weeks ago where he went out of his way to talk about how much Jackson Dart is on his resume, not just Brian Daboll's. Like we all saw the answers. He talked about how he actually remember, he brought him to Brian Daboll first before Daboll ever saw him. We saw all of this. Now you mean to tell me Joe Shane, whose drafts and free agency and all that stunk, the one thing he could hang his hat on this offseason to keep his job is Jackson Dart, is leaking out that all options are on the table and people are going to believe it? Now, here's why I think it's funny. I do think he leaked that out because common sense says if you have multiple teams that want that first overall pick, when at the time we thought the Giants were getting it, and they think that they're bidding against themselves, they will give you less. If the Giants show fake interest in Fernando Mendoza, it could help drive up price. You're bidding against, the Giants. The Giants aren't interested in Fernando Mendoza. And the whole NFL is going to know that based on what Joe Shane, as long as Joe Shane's the GM. So I just thought it was very funny because it was so obvious this was a leak from Shane, but also what would Joe Shane's grounds to keep his job be if he was willing to not have Jackson Dart be his quarterback next year? So like, you need to use common sense when reading that report, Bryce.
Do you think he also leaked it to show that like, if he was fired, people would consider, like hypothetically, if they were placed in that those potential GMs would consider moving on? That Dart is his guy, and he wouldn't do that.
I see what you're doing there.
I'm just asking, like I'm playing devil's advocate. That's
I don't think
what I was getting from you.
I don't think Joe Shane is leaking anything to the media with any realm or prism of like, I want to show them what it's going to be like if I get fired.
Okay.
I think it's all about like, hey, I'm keeping this job here. I think he's operating with these leaks like he is keeping his job. So start the leaks now with the idea of like, hey, we're not going to be out of this thing in terms of quarterback. And if you're ever going to say you're interested in a quarterback, the time would have been before this game anyway, where Dart hadn't looked great last week. So I get it. It's just such a lame leak because you just know, like, if Joe Shane went to management or ownership and talked about why he deserves to keep a job and brings up the idea of, hey, we have the number 1 overall pick, we can go take this Fernando Mendoza kid, they would fire him on the spot because half of the reason he keeps his job is because they got the quarterback right. Yeah. So it just that report the report didn't even make sense. But the other part of the report was the idea of Joe Shane safe through the draft. Again, I'm telling you, I think this report came from Joe Shane. Like Ian Rappaport's never going to reveal his sources.
Why would you report that though?
Well,
from Joe Shane,
I think that he probably also checked with somebody with the Giants. I do believe that it's more likely not Joe Shane's keeping his job anyway. Obviously, Rappaport's going to go there with multiple sources. I get that. Look, it's been very quiet on the Giant front, and I think anything is possible in the next week or so. But the more quiet it's been, the more it would lead you to believe that he is safe, because I think you would hear way more stuff. And the only kind of heat you hear is from fans and podcasters, because that's what common sense says you should get fired. And the Giants don't always operate with common sense.
This is bad. This is going to be bad. I sent you that tweet that said, if Shane is kept, something along the lines of this, that fans would make January 6th look like a picnic.
Oh, jeez.
Something like that. I mean, like, I just can't remember the last time a fan base was this fervently against management or someone attached to management with the New York team. Like,
And the moment they fired Dable and didn't fire him, you knew it was going to get worse, right? You just knew.
It wasn't this bad with Judge. It wasn't this bad with Shermer. It wasn't this bad with McAdoo.
No, but you're getting it mixed up, and you hit on it. They fired the coach first. With Joe Judge, Gelman, everybody knew was out because he was being forced into retirement.
Yeah.
And Brian Dable, for all his warts and for people and fans turning on him, was a guy who won Coach of the Year. And I think anybody who asked you about the success of 2022 would tell you it was more Brian Dable than it was Joe Shane. You come back to year 4 or 5, whatever the hell it's been now, and you wonder, how is Joe Shane keeping his job? So that's where the anger comes from. Look, the next week, if there is heat on Joe Shane losing his job, by the way, your boy Tonches just scored if that was who you started in fantasy. That was by the way, Bryce Gelman texted me today. That was one of the tight ends he was going to start. He has just scored a touchdown. Tonjes there with San Francisco.
I started Waller.
Well, you just lost an early touchdown. So.
I just lost. Yeah, my third straight year losing in Dynasty. My 4 best players combined for 38 points. Gibbs, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, and Nico Collins combined for 38 points. What are you going to do?
Enjoy.
What a brutal day. And then I lost, and I'm like, oh, well, at least the Giants could lose this game.
No, they did.
They did.
It's going to be a weird week, folks. This is where I'm bringing this all back to. It's going to be a weird week. We don't even know what time the Giants play. I guess you can assume 1 o'clock Sunday. And what's funny about that is, Bryce, you and I definitely should wait on Sunday to do the podcast as late as possible so we know all the scenarios, too. Like, the Raiders are playing a home game versus the Chiefs. They're not going to play till 4 o'clock Eastern, meaning the Giants could lose to Dallas, and we don't know the outcome of that game until, like, 7:30 Eastern. That's all on the table next week.
Yeah.
So, good times.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm so excited.
Good times by all. All right, listen. At Bryce Gelman, at Shaun Morash, Twitter and X. Weird Giant week ahead. You want to be with us. When will that pod drop as far as like the recap episode? That's why you want to download, subscribe. We'll have another preview episode. We'll have more information on the number 1 pick and all the scenarios and all that stuff. Download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. And if we're not back before January 1st, thank you for a great 2025 with Bryce Gelman and myself. Thanks for taking one giant step with us.